Welcome to Talking in Stations. I am Matterall, your host. With me today is Dirk McGurk
Hey, what's up?
and Carneros.
Good morning, folks.
All right, we're going to be doing a dive into the politics of EVE Online. We're going to go around the map a bit and basically focus on Providence. And so we have some people who are our guests today from Providence. Let's go and see who they are. First, we'll start with a well-known CSM member, Jintan.
Howdy. I'm, well, you know me from pretty much everything I do.
yes, I do.
You know who I am.
Everybody else does too. You need a big ring on your finger, like Super
Get some
Bowl.
gold chains going on, swag it up. Do you want to just get
That's
my
right.
gold tie out?
Show your, what do they call it now? Sauce. Joining him, FC from ARX, is Alistair Sharp. We'll call him Sharp.
Hi there. Yeah, I'm probably FC, been head nerd in charge of making decisions when Jin's been away. It's good to be here.
Excellent. And in addition, we have from Severance, Brohamo.
Hey, how's it going? Some of you probably know me just from the Pravi area, but yeah, I'm just from Severance. It's what I do, an FC.
Excellent. Welcome, guys. Let's.
Great to have you with us.
Yeah.
Bro, you're a US time zone dude, right?
Correct.
Yeah, so we've got 2 Euro FCs and a US time zone FC, because this war actually hasn't just been in EU time zone.
Yeah, excellent. All right, but before we get to Providence, we're going to actually start up in the northern part, and that northern part of the map, which would be Pureblind, Fade, and Cloud Ring specifically. That tri-region area is being pretty much assailed by forces from the south, including the Imperium. They've put a beachhead inside of Pureblind, and that's right next to Fade, so they are excursioning into that area, but also attacking Cloud Ring, and these are homes of Horde and Darkness, and basically Guardians of the Galaxy's coalition. I hate that name. I'm on the record.
Guardians of the Galaxy?
Yeah.
Why? Because it's a ripoff of a movie, or?
Yeah, think of something else.
Saying that into like they don't have the IP.
Yeah. I'll tell you the truth. When I write and when I do things, I resist saying names I don't like. So if you have a name that I don't like, I just don't say it. I refer to it as something else. And
Like what CCP was doing in Alliance Tournament with Team Skill,
yeah, I'm on their page. I'm on their page. Why? Because I think you get trolled through names, like there's a meta. You name yourself something that is a joke, and then, every time they say it, it's a joke and you're being played and that sort of thing. So it's a resistance to that feeling used in that way.
But it loses its meaning after a while. Remember the first time you heard Test Alliance, please ignore? And you thought, oh, wow, that's rather clever. I wonder how often that has worked. And then now it doesn't mean that to you anymore. You just think of Test.
Well, maybe that's the way forward. You just kind of use it until it's ignored, and because a lot of people have come through that way, right? There's Test, yeah. All right, maybe you're changing my mind about it, Carneros.
I mean, you're in an alliance whose literal name is a joke. Like Northern Coalition Dot was called Northern Coalition Dot to make fun of the old Northern Coalition because they were they were in the eyes of the people who formed it so shit.
And then it becomes NC Doc.
Yeah, like.
So no matter what you do, somebody's gonna find a way of using it. But
I mean, there's a great nickname that some people have been using for PL, calling them Pathetic Legion. I quite like that one. It's pretty good.
Oh, yeah, that must be a recent name. But yeah, you're right, and the names do change and all that. So it's it is an interesting thing. We'll talk about that later on when we get into the meta section of the show. But first, we're going to go again to the north and the south, east, west, all over the map. We'll talk about Empire Space and stuff's going on there if there's any news there. And then we'll get to meta and other stuff. Okay, so Cloud Ring, looks like there's been 3 big fights. Carneros, have you seen or heard these? What are these like inside the Imperium?
Well, it did. There's some varying of fights, by the way. Some of them have been stuff in the system ROI RTAC-Y in Pureblind, and usually that's over a structure. It's either something that one of the Imperium SIGs dropped along the way, or it's something where the Imperium SIGs saw the hostiles do the other side onlining something, or those kinds of structure type fights. People know when they are, they know where they are, and they decided, let's form for this one, not for that one, and they showed up. And the SIGs are running a little bit different fleets than you would encounter if you moved a military force to Delve, for example. You can look at the kill board and see they're running things like Ishtars and stuff that's a little bit of a throwback and hasn't been on our active agenda for a while. Things that are a little bit smaller and easier on the logistics folks, taking logistics into hostile areas. There's some good parts to it. And some of those battles have been somewhat asymmetrical. I'm not actually deployed with one of those forces with any of my alts, so I haven't been in any of those. I have been participating in the Cloud Ring type fights, though. It's not super well known, but the Bastion is deployed at the moment to J5A in Fountain, which is on the Cloud Ring border. So we've been using that to either go backwards into Fountains and do stuff with Fountain Core, or go forwards into Cloud Ring and participate in stuff there.
Yeah. I like that point of being asymmetrical combat, because that's what I'm reading in these battle reports or after action reports, that these are not really your typical fights with two big blobs, are they?
No, and the interesting, the fights become less typical and a little bit more interesting for the participants. I mean, every combat fight in EVE is interesting your first few times. Once when you're trying to just learn what's going on and just getting into it. But after you've done the same kind of fight 10 in a row and you understand what's going on, now you enjoy it more when there's something a little bit different. And an asymmetric fight also has the possibility of both sides getting a little part of their objectives and going away feeling successful in some way.
Yeah.
I mean, if the smaller side, maybe lost more on the ISK war, but achieved some objectives, they feel like, dude, we managed to achieve that even with smaller forces, and they feel successful. And likewise, larger sides feel successful. Those are good for EVE.
So we have some FCs here. What do you guys think about these kinds of fights as opposed to everybody blobbing up into two groups and fighting each other head on?
I personally sort of like it like this. Everyone kind of giving everything, and it sort of EVE's kind of turned to this meta whereby you just blew everyone, and then either side, the side that's got less people, just kind of just don't turn up. And everyone's just super duper scared of losing anything on their kill board that no one really commits anymore. So seeing everyone commit on that kind of scale is really, really nice.
Well, I imagine there's a lot of pressure on FCs not to be the guy that keeps feeding fleets to their enemies. So
definitely. I mean, like, a lot of the FC teams are trying to put that on all the other FCs, because it only works if everyone does it. Like, if one person's feeding and 3 people aren't, the 3 people who aren't are just losing equity.
Yeah. So does this kind of asymmetric warfare allow like younger FCs to come up, or newer FCs to come up? Is it a good training ground, or does it not apply?
I don't know if it's a good training ground, but it's a good proving ground for new FCs. Like, not at the scale you're looking at here. This is not where FCs are built. You don't become an FC and start throwing around your capital fleet. But in terms of like having a reason for there to be like smaller skirmish level warfare that newer FCs can really get stuck into and start to learn, I think that's important.
Yeah.
Because whilst the big FCs are busy doing stuff like this, you've still got to deal with that home defense. You've still got to deal with, every bit of content that you normally have to deal with. It's just you've got more content on top of that. So that gives like such a huge amount of space for new FCs to learn in.
Well, when FozzieSaw was first introduced, Dirk, I don't know if you remember, we were talking about these kinds of things, and it was, is this going to allow room for, newer FCs to get involved in the smaller groups, so the pressure's not on. The whole battle is not at risk by one person. There's different facets to it, so that would be an easier way to get into it.
Well, I think. Well, yeah. I mean, I would just say that yes, under a broader Fozzie warfare kind of thing, right? You would think that you would need a lot more FCs to be able to kind of spread things out, right? I mean, that was sort of the purpose of it, right? Was that it was going to spread out conflict across a constellation. Therefore, it was going to require more individuals involved with leading elements of that, right?
Yeah.
I don't know that necessarily worked out that way. I mean, number one, you'd have to go into, well, how much are people actually engaging in FozzieSaw to begin with? And then, how are they doing it? It seems like from what I've experienced that you've got more, you do have some smaller things going on, but those are kind of like your individual Entosis people. And then you've got, sort of a main group that's out there waiting to pounce on something else or chasing shadows or whatever, instead of having broken the main body of the fleet off into pieces, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
well,
I think in general we just see like one or two big fleets of interceptors, and then just small gangs of individuals who are trusted to do Entosis work. It doesn't seem any more any more distributed than a regular fleet might be.
And in the fleet itself, the people who are not doing Entosis don't feel particularly emotionally connected to the people who are doing Entosis, so they don't feel like we're doing this thing. They feel like something's happening while I'm waiting, and then when are we done?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is a reason why I've called for a long time to have like damage cap structures instead of the actual Entosis mechanics, because I don't think the Entosis mechanics are conducive to good game.
You need that visceral feelings of damaging something and breaking it, huh?
Yeah, I mean, like pressing F1 on something is great. I mean, even when we have enough DPS to like reinforce a structure with just drones, how many times do you see people just shooting because they just want to shoot their guns? It's like every time, right?
Yeah, we have some information in chat here from Red Boot Stamping, actually, Vertigo, and Cameron Ballard. Thanks, guys, for participating in the chat there. Garmin raises a question here. How do we feel about the outbreak of fleets coming back? I guess Drakes have been deployed. Drake's being a battle cruiser from the Caldari.
I've heard that they've been used in a few things. I mean, you've always heard it over the years, right? I mean, I don't think we're on the path back to the day of the Drake.
It's so funny that people really want it and they don't want it. It's both.
I saw Drake fleets go out in the last 10 hours or so. But it was sort of like semi-comedy, and they were making a point. It's a Drake fleet, you guys, get in, and off to go do something.
Yeah.
And you want to bring a Drake, now's your chance.
Yeah.
Well, all right. So yeah, up north again, the goons are basically causing a lot of problems, and I think they've gotten the attention of the north in a pretty significant way, because there've been some troop alignments and stuff. People are taking it seriously, and it started out as something that looked like it was just a little bit of an excursion. And if I remember correctly, it was Asher Elias on the show said, "Yeah, if you like these fleets, because we're having a great time, don't tell anybody about it. Don't tell reporters about it. Don't talk about it on shows." Of course, he said it on our show. And once he did say it, now those, the amount of people participating has skyrocketed. So now it's become an actual big thing. So, yeah, sorry that fun was ruined, but it does help Talking in Station's bottom line to get information out. And now it looks like it's a significant break. Like there's a lot of stuff going on up there, back and forth. Also, dial back 6 months, Goons made a big proclamation, or the Imperium, we're going to go up north and we're going to cause some trouble. And they went up north, and PL and NC, also came back home to their northern area and defended pretty strongly. MC helped by taking out all these Astra houses that were put down. We talked about this in our thing, and it seemed like it was a pretty big failure for Goonswarm. But now they seem to have like some success here. Like this seems to be the way to go, is not to make big announcements, but just kind of start fighting and see if it grows from there.
Makes a big difference in a campaign if NC Dot and PL stay far away, or if they come and participate but don't bring their super caps, or if they come and bring the whole kitchen sink with them. It's 3 completely different profiles.
I mean, also from like a morale point of view, it's better for both sides if neither of them like declares an all-out war, because it means if you end up ceding ground, it doesn't cost you anything. Like, worst case scenario, what, Goonswarm tries to take over Cloud Ring? Does anyone really think that's going to happen? Not really. They take maybe half of it, max. Best case scenario, NC holds, Pandemic Horde holds onto their stuff. Is that like something you want to like, do you want to draw the line of where your coalition lives in Cloud Ring? No, you don't. That's stupid.
Yeah. Well, it seems like it's about damaging infrastructure and stuff like that. Well, let's move on a little bit because there's something else going on up north. I think Tissue is attacking the Renter Alliance for PL and NC, and Tissue being adversity. Tissue being their call sign. And they definitely took out at least a couple Rorks. They've been active up there since December, I believe, which is kind of interesting because they're blue, I believe, to PL and NC.
A couple of lost Rorks. That's a normal hour in Delve.
Travesty. It's an atrocity.
It's still it's not okay. So if you're a renter and you get killed, it's kind of on you. But if you're renting, you're like, you have some expectation of stability. That's what you're paying for, isn't it? Isn't there a police force that NCPL are
Stability means they're not coming to take the SOV. It doesn't mean you're not getting ganked. I mean,
you're expected to like look after yourself.
Now that being said, if you are a landlord, right, and your renters are being harassed to the extent that they move out of what may now be devolving into a ghetto situation, then you have to be concerned about that, right? Because now your land values, your property values are going down. Your income streams could potentially be going down. So, while renters are typically not afforded protection by the landlord, in their day-to-day walking to and from work. It is something longer term, were it to have a degrading kind of impact on the area.
Yeah, you're right. And Crow Glaive there is someone I know who's someone that does have some hardware or some buildings, some citadels inside of rented space. And so he knows a lot about this kind of stuff. And he agrees with you guys. You pay to use the land. You don't pay for security.
If a renter reached out to me and said, I lost a Rorqual today in my space, or even if they weren't complaining, even if I reached out to them and I said, how's your day going? How you like it so far? Oh, I lost a Rorqual today. One of the things I would ask them was, were you guys being targeted, or were you just an opportunistic moment through a wormhole or something like that? Was it just a roam and they caught your guy mid-cycle? Yeah, that's a relevant point.
Okay.
I think.
All right. And looking at NC from the inside, this is not anything that's going to jeopardize security.
Hold on. You're just real quick, kind of back to that. I mean, is the idea, do we think that adversity is up there trying to pressure something, or are they just, sort of hunting?
I don't know. But if you're blue to NC and PL, like, are killing their renters a good idea? Like, what kind of message is that sending?
Oh, is adversity blue?
Yeah,
I don't think adversity were blue. Didn't
might
they
be
leave
neutral,
PL in very bad circumstances, or circumstances that weren't exactly. I mean, I remember Capri posting quite extensively about it on Reddit, and he seemed kind of mad about the whole thing. So I assume they didn't have a nice, friendly breakup.
No, you're right. And they wouldn't be blue anyway. They would probably be neutral, if anything else. But it seems like they're not necessarily enemies. But I could be wrong. Maybe they are. Usually it's like blue trolls, I think, as as they say here. Okay, the other thing is we have a lot of FCs inside of NC now that are relatively new, which is kind of interesting. You have, I think Poison Kevin has returned. You have Lucian James took a fleet out yesterday. I'd love to fly with that guy.
I actually really like PK. He's such a chill dude.
Lucian has some fun fleets. You should go on. Well, people from NC should go on his fleets. I'm not sure you should. You may get triggered or offended by something.
Yeah.
You would want to have 2 glasses of wine and then go on his fleet.
Did NC Dot absorb a lot of FCs recently as well with the Tri-Merger and like some other things as well?
Yeah, that's where they've come from.
Oh,
So
Killer.
we have,
That's what I'm thinking of.
yeah, Killer B is a big one. He came from PL. That was highly visible, but maybe a little less visible was Triumvirate. We picked up Sergeant, I always say it wrong, Patrick Archer.
Captain Patrick Archer.
Yeah, Captain. I just demoted him. Sorry. And
Do you want to call him Colonel Patrick Archer next time? Just make up
yeah,
for it.
right, just to make up for it. Then you have Beppe, I think. Was he former? I thought he was former CO2. I'm wrong about that. Lucian James from CO2. You have. There's a couple other ones in there. But anyway, yeah, so there's a lot of new FCs, which is kind of interesting. A lot of them are European, so it's pretty thick now with European FCs. Good stuff. All right, the other area that has seen some activity that's interesting is Omiss. Are you guys aware that 9 Nixes went down, or was it 8? 8 Nixes went down out of 10, which was basically a small group, which is kind of interesting because we don't talk about these guys very much in general, but there are guys that aren't wormhole guys themselves, but they live in wormholes so that they can make opportunistic attacks on nullsec.
That's just
And that
HK,
group-
isn't it?
No,
Like
it's
HK
not.
organize this, don't they?
No,
Oh,
but they're like that. This group is called, their alliance was called Clown Car, which is
yeah,
funny.
we've fought those guys before.
Yeah. So Clown Car sits there. That's the alliance. The group is actually, it's one corporation, and that corporation basically sits there and fishes. And they picked up a Nix, and they picked up another Nix, and then they picked up another Nix, and they're like, wow, we're really taking these Nixes, and it turns out it was all the same guy. So that created quite a stir because they're talking about, oh, and they killed a 9th one today. That's awesome. So they killed a 9th Nix.
Well, a day later. I don't think it was today. It was because this now goes back a few days. But
Oh, I'm sorry, a day later, right. So the point is that it's a neat style of gameplay. You don't really harvest the wormholes. You don't live in it. You're not really a wormhole corp, but you're a raiding party. And yeah, Hard Knocks does it. Skill does it as well. I think those are X-Pizza.
Still have a really interesting setup where they have like they're currently busy in, oh god, what reach was it? Like Ethereum Reach? They were
It is Ethereum
helping
Reach.
there with the Great Wildlands Coalition.
Yeah, Ethereum Reach, and I think Hard Knocks is up in Cobalt Edge. But, Hard Knocks, no joke, they can bring super caps in. So you have this regional supremacy kind of thing going on and kind of banditry. I call them the Pancho Villas.
The Highwaymen of Eve.
Yeah, that's a neat thing. I don't think we've seen that yet. It's not mercenaries.
I don't know. I think you have seen that. I mean,
Have we?
the use of wormholes to pop through looking for targets of opportunity. I mean, it's sort of been around since kind of wormholes came out.
But for wormhole groups that would also excursion out to nullsec, their only thing is they sit there and that's all they do. Maybe it's not new. But
The old like pirate groups that you hear about in old Eve, like alliances like Veto, and
yeah.
People like that who just lived in Lowsec and just killed people before they, when they actually just had to move stuff constantly, like in freighters and haulers and stuff, because there wasn't any long-term logistics, and they would just live off of that. I think Eve's been missing that for a long time.
Yeah.
So I'm glad to see it come back in some way.
But now there was certainly more to this story down in Omist. Okay, in terms of they popped through through a wormhole. They came across this Nyx, right? And I don't even think it was many of them. I think it may have been one guy or whatever. And he basically determined that this looked to be a bot. Right, so ended up, because the way it warped off, he had the anomaly the thing was in, it warped off, blah blah blah. Laid down a bubble inside of the anomaly, and the thing came back. And when he logged back in, there it was, calmly ratting, inside of this bubble. He then calls his buddies, who then come flooding through the wormhole in subcaps, and there weren't even that many of them, who then take down this Nyx that tried to warp but was in a bubble, couldn't do that, and didn't fight back, didn't talk, didn't say anything, didn't do anything. They killed that, and then came across the other ones and basically began to, they're all from the same, all these Nyxes from the same corp and everything, and then began to take them down too, and they all apparently acted the same way. So this came down to, is what we have here, a botter situation. And of course, Reddit blew up, and this whole, botting, it's out on Massively and everything else, about this, this renewed outcry against the war on bots.
Right. That was the big deal about it. I want to introduce Killer B, who just came on. How you doing, Killer?
Hey, what's up?
NCPL former, NC FC.
Hi, Killa.
All right. Yeah, so that the bot thing, and that seemed to have lit up Reddit. There's some interesting play and counterplay with this. On the one hand, it's seen as like, hey, CCP, do your job and kill these guys. On the other hand, I think from the Imperium's point of view, it's like, well, this is just a sneaky way to bring in nerfs to supers, which they don't appreciate. So it's kind of interesting. There's like a meta level to this.
Well, I mean, in that case, there would be no need for a nerf to supers per se, because, bots have existed since forever in EVE. They've just now gotten to the point where they can even bot with supers using the new fighter mechanics and things like that, right? So it's not so much that a nerf would need to be made to supers in any way. It's more along the lines of, how does CCP track these things? What are the responsibilities of players to try and report these things, and so on and so forth, which is probably a very long conversation, but
yeah.
In terms of how Providence deals with this, because we do have botters inside Providence. Unfortunately, we're a very open group, so botters can join us. But what we do is, if you see someone doing that, you'll generally talk to someone. And just recently, we dropped a carrier on 7 botting Ravens in Providence, and we killed them all. And we had that guy kicked from his alliance.
Well, that seemed like
not acceptable.
The players are taking matters into their own hands, as you might have said, and hunting these guys on their own.
That's what we do in the Imperium too. We drop on them and then kick.
Well, we'll pick up botting later if we have time, because I want to ask the question later on: is botting actually a bad thing? So I'm sure you all have opinions on that. Okay, so moving on, we're going to get to Providence now, and this is an area that is, to me, is definitely an area to keep your eye on. This is in the southern part of the map, and Providence has been there a long time. I'll let you guys tell me about Providence, but first I want to make sure that Sharp is here and Brohamo are here.
Yeah,
man.
All right, great. So why don't you guys start? Tell me your experience on what's going on. We'll start with Bramo, since Severance is there taking the brunt of it, it looks like, at the moment. We also have Killer B here, again, from Northern Coalition, who's involved in Providence, as NC and PL are attacking Providence. But Brohamo, what's been going on?
Well, first, we started noticing PL deployed, and they moved into Asa, which is low sec right next to our SOV G5. And over the past month or so, they've been pretty much picking on us, and we've been trying to fight them back, and it's been going pretty well so far. And then a few weeks ago, they started coming after our SOV and our station. Right now, they completely own G5. They hit our YWSO, iHub station, and TCU, and we're currently working on the iHub and the TCU, but we totally lost. the station and whatnot. But we've been working on intosising that. But it's been pretty well, and the fight's been rough, but it's been good. And obviously, when you live in North Pravi, you know that you could always get kicked out or whatnot. It's happened before with Goons, NCPL, AAA. So we always have that, that DEF CON mode. And right now we're just battering down the hatches and trying to win every timer. And they have to be flawless because PL is a good entity and they are really good at capitalizing on our mistakes. So we always have to try to be one step ahead. And we've been trying to do that really well. And we've been going to the drawing board a lot because we've been winning some timers, but not as much as we'd like. And they've been mostly off of one-trick ponies, so we just got to keep rolling with the ideas and just keep trying and keep at it. And we're definitely in for the long haul in the grind in Severance. So
Cool. What about you, Sharp?
I'd mostly agree with that. It's like you said, PLNC aren't bad, and so sort of trying to stay ahead of them is usually an uphill struggle. I think one of the biggest things I have noticed about this conflict so far, it's been properly going on for about a week and a bit now, is there's not been that sort of one typical fight as of yet. There's not been that one sort of everyone throws everything and it happens. It's just kind of been very small skirmishes. No one really wants to commit if the other side has a sort of fairly large force. And something I will say is those higher than Everest guys who just joined PL have been putting in work on soft timers. Those guys definitely know what they're doing, and they've been carrying PL in the soft game over the last couple of days. But we're doing pretty well. We've saved some structures over the last few days. I don't think we've lost a single structure as of yet, so not going too badly.
Slowly actually retiming our shit to be like one single timer, so we don't have to deal with like 11 a.m. fucking Thursday timers anymore.
Well, here's a question: Is Pravi fighting on a unified front, or is Pravi unified in kind of fighting this back? Because I mean, something I was hearing yesterday was that it looks as though PL is sort of split Pravi a bit, and they're focused on sort of that Severance area over there, and it just kind of sounded like maybe all of Pravi wasn't together with this.
Well,
go ahead, Brian.
Well, at first it got hard, and when they started hitting us in the U.S. time zone, it got even harder. And we knew our EU time zone could take care of it. So when shortly after we started noticing that they came from G5 to 4B into 9 fob area, and they wanted to split off the neck. So because you have CVA and ARC and everybody on the other side, and Severance just right in the north, and YF as well. So it got tricky at first, but then this weekend kind of was a proving ground, and it really proved some things, and we all kind of definitely unified, and we had great numbers for fleets. So I would say that's not a problem anymore, and it just took some time, but now everyone kind of is in like, oh crap mode, like this is real, they're on our turf. So
now Killa might know more about
Killa?
that. Is he there?
What's the question?
Oh, well, okay. So here's the question: Has the agenda for PL and PanFam changed down there with the move to ASA? And is it now literally about going after sovereignty structures and taking space, or is it still about tweaking out good fights?
No, I mean, taking the space doesn't make much sense if you can't put somebody in there to live, which just doesn't make sense for us because we control the north, and putting somebody into Providence, or some people say we would rent out Providence or something, or that was the plan, is kind of hilarious because we're not planning, like our home is the north and the south is just the deployment to get better content, because obviously in the north it's all sort of blued up. So yeah, we're just attacking stuff to provoke reactions. And, when Citadels, the way that the Citadel mechanics are currently, it's kind of fun to say, but it's actually, we've been getting better content out of the Fuzzies off timers than we got out of the Citadels. Provi is now retiming everything for like EU primetime weekend, so the test can come help them, which makes sense. If you're in fear of an invasion, you obviously don't fuck around. So they timed everything, or they're in the process of timing most of their shit for weekend EUTZ, so that test can come over with like 600 people. Test deployed. Well, I don't want to call it a big super fleet, but some of their super fleet into 18X, which is in the middle of Providence, mostly for the timers this weekend, I would assume. If they move him back afterwards, we'll see. If they leave him there, we'll see. But basically, there's this weekend right now. We have yesterday there was a Sotiu and a 4-timer that which was one of the reasons Test moved the supers, and then today there's a 4 timer. So I'm pretty sure we're just going to get blown up by caps and shit on those timers, which is fine. We're just gonna keep it on a more skirmishy level, and at the skirmishing we're just better. Basically, whenever Test isn't around, we're winning. So yeah, we'll have to see how that develops. But my mind is not really on the South right now, because I'm more interested in what's going on in Cloud Ring. So that's like, to me, defending the North is more important than fucking with Providence. But yeah,
I think that's pretty much everyone's like view on this war, right? Providence on its own is probably going to struggle to beat NC Dot and Pandemic Legion combined, because those are.
I mean, the only reason
two
NC
of
Dot
the
is here,
probably.
I can tell you that, is because we knew you would rely on Test to help you.
Yeah, no, I think we're aware of that, but you take that back, and anytime we've ever put up a serious response to PL on their own in the last half of this war, back when it was the anime war, NC Dot was always there, because that's kind of how you guys function. You're a very close-knit.
No, I remember being in
FC
PL
team.
and fighting you guys alone, just PL versus Provi.
No, I'm not disputing that happened. But whenever we really tried to go all in, NC Dot would be there, and that was something that I'm not knocking you for. That makes perfect sense. You're trying to win, but that's how it was, because you guys know if there's a reason for NC to be there and it won't scare off the content, NC will be there, because you have that kind of link of intelligence.
So that's interesting.
That makes sense.
This is the first time I'm hearing it. The reason NC is there is a counter escalation to Test getting involved. So they must have known that Test was getting involved a few weeks ago.
Test was involved the entire time. So basically, it's kind of funny, because I was in PL when this whole deployment to the South thing started, and then I swapped to NC in the middle, and I can now basically see it from both sides. Basically, the idea for PL was PL didn't like staying in the North, because everything around us was blew up, because Northern Coalition, blah blah. So PL deployed south when CO2 was still alive and all that. We decided, look, there's one side is FCON, one side is Brave, one side is Provi. We basically have content all around us. So we decided to deploy to Curse and sort of just go to wherever the content is best. We had some brawls with FCON, we had some fights with Brave and Co and Test, and then we had some fights with Provi. So that was kind of the idea. But then as CO2 died, as Legacy Coalition, and that sort of, I mean, they're still around. They're still a Legacy Coalition, but they're not as independent anymore as they were when it was CO2 Test mostly. Now they're mainly just goon, allies. So you had that. Now sort of after a couple of months, the fronts sort of ironed out, and it was pretty clear that none of the entities in the South were able to fight us on their own. That was still just PL. So they started banding together, which a lot of people like doing versus PL, because it's, the PL somehow is still a big boogeyman, so they all like band together. And then a couple of, I don't actually know how long ago, but it must have been a couple of months from now ago, Test actually started committing towards Catch and helping out the people around Catch, helping out Provi, which was when they started deploying into U-Q. And that's basically when it started to become impossible for PL on its own to pick any fights, because any bigger timer that PL would attend, Test would show up on whoever side is fighting PL, just because it's for Test, it's a big thing to kill PL. And so we thought about what can we do, and then it kind of coincided with the fact that NC Dot was basically done in, I think, they were in Syndicate at the point, purging Init moons or some shit. And Init and then NC Dot was basically looking, hey, where can we go? So NC Dot, PL asked NC Dot, hey, why don't you guys come down here to our shit so we can have a better chance to fight Test, especially because Test has become really, really strong in the last year. Test is probably in the top 3 of alliances right now, in terms of strength. So that happened, but now it didn't really help that much because most people know that we only deployed down dreads and like subcaps. PL and NC both did, which means
How
that
about carriers?
11 carriers,
no,
I
not
heard.
really.
Are there more than 11 carriers in the region?
The old 11 carriers me was
Yeah.
literally the best.
So
So
basically, we just deployed with regular caps, which Test is now on the level where they basically just use their supers and titans as much as they can, and obviously, as soon as supers and titans are involved, any amount of dreads is it's starting to be whatever. So basically, we're now back in a situation where even with NC and PL being down here, as long as we don't commit our supers down here, we kind of have to work our way around getting hammered by Test, cap hammered.
Yeah.
Subcap fights were fine, but caps is a little bit iffy.
Thanks. That's a great review. Did Carneros, you wanted to?
Yeah,
counter?
not to talk smack because that's not my style. But regarding the banding together to fight you, I don't think you were actually fighting any. If you're talking about Curse Catch, that area and that activity, you were just engaging one of the SIGs. I think Space Violence. I don't
No, it
think
wasn't.
you.
I didn't talk about goons. I worked with Kandar. I
Okay.
worked with Kandar when we originally deployed down. The first 2 big fights that we had down here, that was like back in April or something. I can't remember. There were 2 big cap fights. One in GE Tech over the Brave Fortizar, and then one in 1P over one of our Astra houses. And in both those fights, we actually worked together with the Goon signature, Goon, whatever, Squad, SIG, whatever.
Yeah.
SIG.
The Goon SIG, which is led by Kendar. But now that the whole Test and Goon thing is a little bit more clear, obviously Kendar stopped working with us, especially versus Test. So yeah, that's kind of gone now.
Well, Dirk, did you just have something to add to that, or?
Oh no! I typed it in the thing. I don't necessarily think people like banding together against PL for some reason. It's kind of like they have to band together in a lot of those situations. I'm sure they'd much rather PL didn't show up on their doorstep in the first place.
Yeah, I tried to raise that in the chat because it might have come across in the wrong way with what I was saying, but I do really respect Pandemic Legion. They are an incredibly strong alliance.
Yeah.
I'd also
you
add
can't
that-
underestimate that.
That I don't
I'd say
think
they're
there's
probably a top
anything.
2 alliance in the game, wouldn't you? When he said Test was 3, I was like, I was trying to count. I'm like, okay, let's.
I'd probably
Yeah,
put Test.
Test probably is in the top 3 as far as combined PanFam Test.
Here's a good one. What's top 5 alliances in the game in terms of power?
Who do we want to answer? Me?
Hey, go on.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
The
Kill
top,
it.
you
the
did the
top,
3.
And you
sing-
guys
the
too
top,
in chat.
All right. The top 5 of power is Goon Swarm, NC Dot, Tests. Wait, 5. PL. What 5th alliance is there?
That's it.
I don't know. XIX. I have no dude. Like it's really just 4. It's Goons, NC, Test, PL in single strength. I'm not saying that Test on average is better than PL, but the problem is that nowadays. So back in the day, right? The reason alliances like PL got famous, the reason an alliance like Black Legion got famous, because back in the day, the way that the meta worked back then, it was that you could actually, with like a fleet of 100 people, you could beat a fleet of 200 people. Because if you would field Ajax versus Maelstroms, you could win with less numbers because of sick tank and stuff like that. You could actually sort of outmaneuver the enemy. But in the current meta, there is nothing like that. There's Feroxes, which beat anything, and there's T1 battleships like Rocks and Maelstroms, which beat anything. And right now, the ship meta is really And like it's really N+1. I hate the term N+1, but it's really N+1 heavy. And then obviously super cap forces come on top of that. And Test has just so many people that it makes them so strong.
N+1s for the uninitiated means bringing more people. You bring the equal number of people that they have plus more.
I think to some degree, Pandemic Legion proves that wrong. I mean, we tried fighting, with same people, but with more numbers against Pandemic Legion at the start of the war with like Abaddons, and we kind of got fucking stomped, to be honest, because you guys were using capitals better than us.
Yeah, but I mean, you really want me to answer? Like,
I know you're just gonna say yeah, but you're probably, but
yeah, that's just because I don't know. You didn't play it
don't
right.
worry, I already know. I know.
It's interesting to me, and I noticed that Dominarch in the chat also picked up on this. Is Black Legion, at least the core group? Because when you said that name, Sharp, that we're doing a lot of work for PL, you said Higher Than Everest, right?
Yeah, the X Culture guys.
Right, X Culture, but also X Black Legion.
Black Legion, yeah.
Rec region.
Yeah, so that's it's interesting that Black Legion is kind of split up, but part of it's gone to PL because they were bitter enemies.
People in Twitch chat are like comparing coalitions. Guys, we were talking about single alliances. If you want to talk about coalitions, then it's a whole different story, right? Because
I agree.
like I was talking single alliances. That's why I said goons and not Imperium, because obviously there is TNT, Bastion, and whatever, but that's not what I meant. I was talking about single alliance strength without their coalition, without anything. And that was my top 5. If you want to do it with coalitions, it's different. Because I keep seeing GOTG. Obviously, if you put coalitions in there, GOTG is probably number 2 right now in terms of as a coalition, or number 3. So
Wow, it's pretty high.
That's an interesting debate to have for another day, I think. Yeah.
You can't argue with it. They've like on that MTO Fort Timer, they fielded 1,200 people. Like that's something that not a lot of coalitions can do.
I don't know. I think that NC dot like core PanFam beats out GOTG for that 2 spot.
No, I mean,
like with Horde,
we still have more supers. Yeah, but here's the thing, right? I love Horde, but the problem that Horde has is they have like 2 good FCs or 3, and the average Horde fleet goes like this: they land on grid, they start fighting, all their FCs get headshot, and their fleet's dead. Like Horde is just not, as long as they don't have a proper FC on top, and which is unfortunately very rarely because they only have so few good FCs. Horde is not really a reliable entity to have on grid because they always get primaried by everybody because it's the easiest target, quote unquote. So they always die first. They have a lack of FCs, which means they usually just get neutralized within the first couple of minutes of a fight. Horde has the potential to bring massive numbers, but they need some better core FC team to make it work.
I just like ask myself, would PanFam or GOTG win in a fight? And I think I say PanFam wins that fight, like in a war.
I don't know. Like
I feel like PanFam just has so much experience and so much knowledge and so much more
experience and knowledge is worth way less than you guys keep putting it. Like I read your alliance updates and stuff, and they always say like, "Oh, look, we're doing so good against this super strong and experienced coalition." But like experience and knowledge is important. But if you start like at some number, I can't tell you the exact number, it just stops mattering. Like if there is one alliance that just brings double the amount of subcaps then you can be as experienced as you like, you're still gonna lose because they just kill all your subcaps.
Yeah, I get that, but I don't think that's a situation that PanFam versus GOTG is going to ever be in. Like you were talking there about, how much of an advantage it is to have FCs in a fight, like a reliable source of FCs, so that you can keep going through headshots. That's something that Providence has struggled with mightily. We've only really started to pull ourselves out of that lately. I don't believe that PanFam, if push came to shove, couldn't put some PL FCs in there, and PL just has such a depth there.
Let's ask Carneros.
Here's a question. I'm going to ask this of Killabee. Which of these advantages is a bigger advantage in 2018 EVE Online? The experience and skills of your line pilots, or your superior intelligence on what the enemy's doing, and your superior insights and knowledge into the folks who run your enemy organizations.
I mean, you said the experience of the line members versus
Yeah,
intelligence.
the skill of the pilots
Well, the skill of the
versus
pilots
the
doesn't matter at
intel
all.
and soft.
In big, like if we're not talking small scale, if we're talking big strategic fight, the skill of the line member doesn't matter at all because all he's got to do is anchor up and press F1, which is something that probably could teach a monkey to do. No offense to all you line members in Twitch
None
chat.
taken.
Yeah, but
On
what I'm
behalf.
saying is the line member skill doesn't matter in a big fight, but the intel obviously is very crucial. Very
Yeah.
crucial.
So having a good spy network inside your opponent's alliance is such a huge advantage in any war.
All right. Let's bring Sharp and Brohamo back in here. But I did want to go back to one thing before we do. I think it's ironic, and we kind of skipped over it, but Black Legion, and especially that corporation, was very anti-PL. So is this just an issue of time and people losing their passions to hate certain enemies and actually joining them? Because it does a big deal when other groups join their enemies. I think that should be a big deal too. Okay, no takers on that. So on the ground, Brohamo, when you and I were talking before, by the way, I like the way you call it the neck, as Jintan pointed out, because it sounds very Game of Thrones-ish.
Yeah, well, we are the wardens in the north, so.
Oh, okay, so the whole theme's there.
The whole meme about fucking anything Game of Thrones goes all the way back to the civil war we had over of Sound Mind, where they started making all these references to being the North in Game of Thrones. We made sure those knees bent.
That's awesome.
That's a good one.
But you were saying that, like, you're a young man and you actually were playing EVE with your dad, right?
Yeah, my dad has been playing this game since 2007, and I've always used to, like, growing up, I always used to watch him play this game, but I just never could incorporate it into my life because I was still going into school, and I could tell it was going to be a lot. But one day I tried it out, and me and my dad made us mine for like 12 hours straight. It was the worst experience of my life at the time.
Was he in a Mars slaver?
No, he's always Galante. But and then shortly after I graduated high school and everything, I decided to come and join up and see what this game was like. And we lived in HiSec for about 5 days, and we moved straight to Provi. And I've been in and out ever since. So it's been a good experience. And I play with my dad. He's in Severance, and he's the CEO of his own corporation. And we play literally every day. I mean, sometimes it's fun. Sometimes it's like you just still are at like the family table bickering at each other's. But we've always been. I mean, I've gone red. I joined MOA and not too long ago, and I've been around. So, but he's always been in RDS for 11 years now.
Oh, were you rebelling?
Yeah, I had that rebellious phase.
So awesome. But
It's not the only like father-son team in Providence either. There's a father and son duo of Dead Duck and Odrisir who are very well known for being small gangers in Providence.
We have some father-son teams. We also have a mother-daughter team in the Bastion. I like that.
Wow.
He's been around like coming up on 15 years. It's like we're starting to breed our own.
Yeah. Breeding alphas.
A reminder that I was 7 years old when this game started.
When did you start playing, though?
Just before Tyrannus. I don't remember when that is. Right?
How old were you, though?
That's
Fucking
2010.
really young. 10. Holy shit. So I was like 13.
13? Okay. That's great. I don't know if I like that or it scares me, but
I've been playing this game for more than a third of my life.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It's weird. Sometimes EVE, actually I got into a Twitter slap fest, which I normally don't do, with some people, and one of the responses that came back to me was EVE is just a game. And I was like, yeah, it is a game, but the other part of me that wanted to keep the fight going was like, no, Eve is. I'm playing a different game than you if you think Eve is just a game, because this is like.
No,
It was a hobby.
Call of Duty is a game. MMORPGs are a combination of a game and a community. That's my theory.
Well, it's hard to shut off if you're not thinking about it. You're about planning or that sort of stuff. It comes up, right? You listen to the media about it. At least the people who are listening to us live, about 350 people, and 2,000 that listen afterwards. People stay in touch with it when they're not even playing the game. So I think that's really interesting. And Brohamo, you had said something interesting as well, that your dad had a station. That was a station that he had founded, and it was going to fall or something like that. And I thought that was bittersweet.
Yeah, he kind of had like YWSO as his own, pretty much. It wasn't really his own, but I mean, he was always there, and he had the station and everything, and we just lost that. So, but it's gone into Freeport now, and we just reinforced it. So hopefully we can win that back for him. We'll see.
That's the thing about living in one area for so long. Like, all of these stations have stories associated with them, and it's not like Providence is one of those regions where other people have kind of built infrastructure and then left. New people have come in and kind of rediscovered this old ruined castle and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Providence has been around for 13 years. It's been around since the dawn of the game. You're looking here at an alliance that in 2007, when we lost our super capital fleet, their response was, okay, we put all our money in stuff that can't be destroyed. We put our money in stations. And now finally that investment's coming up.
Yeah, that investment's coming up, and that may lead to a heck of a conflict. Killer B, this isn't related to that, is it? Like, this isn't a preemptive strike to lower ADMs to make the region weaker so that when the time comes you can steal the stations, is it?
Thanks,
Oh man,
Miracle.
dude.
It totally is, though.
The fucking stations, dude. Like, sorry for swearing. The stations, like, nobody actually knows when those changes are actually gonna happen. And I think, while I do appreciate the heart that Pravi is showing, definitely the ping that I think it's your alliance leader, right? Equinox.
Yeah, Equi's are
The moral speech he sent the other day, like 2 or 3 days ago, was great. I really thought it was.
Did he ping out Beefly?
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
It was a big moral thing on how, like, CVA Pravi has been around since forever. We're gonna be around here forever, and it was great because what people seem to fail to see is this is not actually about Providence. It's more about the whole, like, southern construct, the whole, like, anti-NCPL group, right? And there's a couple, like, obviously Goons, Test, and Pravi are sort of part of that, and then all.
No. There is no big organized anti-NCPL construct in the South.
Really?
It's not organized like that. There's nothing like that.
It's just people not liking PL.
Yes,
so when
yes,
you talk to
okay.
another FC and you're like,
Right.
yo, do you want to come help me shoot PL? Normally they'll say,
All right.
yeah, sure.
That's fine. Either way, so there's obviously 3 groups that are working together and talking to each other and asking each other, hey, if you want to come help me out or some shit. So it's Goons, it's Test, and it's Pravi. And then we need to look at who can we go after, or who can we realistically attack. And Test isn't really an option because invading Test is their stuff is way too remote, and invading them wouldn't really do us any good because most of the people would probably just join Goons when Test dies or when Test gets pushed into the ground, which wouldn't be good for the North either if Goons just grow even bigger. So that makes no sense, logical. And then you have Goons, obviously invading Delft doesn't make any sense at all whatsoever with the current mechanics. And then you have Pravi, and Pravi is just the weakest link. And that's why it makes sense for us to siege them. The reason we restaged to Misaba and Asa out of Curse, PL was previously staging in Jamunda and NCDO was previously staging in Oshit, both in Curse, is that this way we can make Test move a bit more, right? Like, when we were staging from Jamunda and Oshit, whenever we hit something in Providence, it was sort of southern, and it was really easy for Test to get there because they can cover a lot from their staging in UHQ. Whereas now from Asa and Misaba, we're sort of forcing, quote unquote, Test to move a little bit. For example, right now they had to stage their supers into Providence to be able to reach these timers. And they have to bring their subcap fleets from UDHQ over, which is just generally making it a little bit more comfortable for us. Whereas before, most of the fights were for test, just undock, get on a Titan and bridge, right? So that's sort of the strategic thing behind that.
Do you know? You have no idea, by the way, how hard it was to convince our leadership that we should let Test have a Fortizar in our space.
Yep.
Oh my god,
so
that was like
obviously the
literally
whole
the hardest thing I've
stage
ever done in life.
that ever happens, Providence is going to be a valuable, very valuable target, and we'll see how that, like, when that comes. The problem is, let's assume they put it out in summer, right? Like, let's say in, I don't know, June or something. That's like 5 months from now. If we make a serious push for Provi now, we don't want to hold or defend or like keep the stations for 5 months, because 5 months is a very, very long time in EVE. You can never plan that far ahead in EVE Online. It just doesn't work. So it really, really.
No,
I would argue.
To take all the
I would
stations
argue
right
that the Alliance tournament means more to PL's legacy than these stations do.
Oh yeah, the AT, but the AT is so that's something that people always say as well. The AT team in PL is a fairly isolated group. There is a bunch of people in the AT team that do take part in these kind of ZOF fights as well, and they play an important role, but it's not a lot of people. Most of the people that play for the AT in PL, they're sort of semi-inactive over the year, and then they come back for the AT. So PL doesn't actually lose a lot of its military capability during the AT. A couple people go away that like start focusing on AT, but it's maybe like 5 or 6 people that like actually just are completely gone that you would usually rely on. So the AT doesn't actually have that big of an effect.
Carneros is breaking out the champagne, it looks like.
I will say that in my opinion, we're not at a turning road here for like any major entity, but for CVA and for Providence in general, this is a huge turning point in like the modern history of CVA. You know, ever since like, I think I consider 2011, 2012 the modern history of EVE at this point. You know, that's just the point where my modern line starts of all of the alliances and coalitions start to make sense. I think this is a huge turning point for CVA and its reputation in the future. You know, are we remembered for as a coalition that was able to stand up to Pandemic Legion and, admittedly, with a lot of help from other people, hold our ground in a way that FCON and some other alliances couldn't? Or are we remembered as someone who, you know, as a coalition that simply rolled over and waited for the bad people to go away? And I think that's important for us, even if it isn't for Pandemic Legion.
It does feel different, this attack, right? This happens all the time. People go on vacation to play in Provi while they wait for campaigns to start. But this one does feel a little bit different. I'm not sure why. It could be the looming treasure trove of stations that's coming later. It may, you know, I don't know. What do you think?
Sometimes it feels different just because the context of everything else happening in EVE around it, and there's not that much context.
Rohamo?
From being in this position before, and the North definitely has fallen before. It only has been when they came in before and taken over the stations, and NC took over KVP. They were out within the next week, and we immediately took it back. But this time, it's definitely feels different and more serious, and that's why we're trying to reach like everybody we can, and for max numbers and everything, because you know, we are definitely fighting against PL and NC, and we can't just roll over. Like Jintan said, we have to win timers, and unfortunately, we have to be flawless, like I said before, because NC.PL, they're really skilled pilots, and we have to kind of, like, I know in the U.S. time zone, we have to. It's like David versus Goliath, so we kind of have to play the guerrilla warfare more and go to the stupid Griffin ships and jam out everything we can, or get snipers and kill the like the toasters and everything. But it's definitely been a grindy one, and it feels way different, and everyone's preparing for such a long grind, and it's been on a serious level this time.
What about you, Sharp?
I think it's going to be different to the FCONs and to the and to the test fight in after World War B. Just simply because Provi just literally will not back down. They won't leave. There's like worst case scenario is they just go to low sec and they hit you the next day. I think actually evicting CVA and evicting Provi is going to be damn near impossible. And like I said, they have no intention of holding it. This is simply just them coming here because we're not blue to them. So it's gonna go on for a lot longer than the AFCON fight did, and the other fights that have sort of happened previously, and the wars that have happened previously, just simply because Provi won't back down, Provi won't stop. Provi's probably not going to be back anytime soon, and we're going to keep fighting.
All right. Going back a bit to the asymmetrical warfare that goes on, it does, Carneros, say, and this is not a counter to what you were saying about these three groups being opposed to PL, but it may sound that way. But it is interesting to know that you have Providence there, you have PL attacking them, you have Test lining up to help, and they will help Providence. I think people are on the record already saying that's going to happen. Goons aren't necessarily, or the Imperium isn't necessarily in there. At least that hasn't been announced that I've heard. But they are attacking the north, distracting NC and PL. As you've heard, Killer B says that's what's important, not this Providence thing. They are attacking at the same time. And they did attack before at the same time when you had Goon Swarm go up with Dreadnoughts into the north at the same time Test was attacking Darkness. Is there any... What's the fancy word now that we say in politics?
Collusion?
Collusion? Dirk, you read my mind.
Well, I don't think so. I think the Cloud Ring stuff was happening a little bit before the invasion of Provi. I don't know if there's some grand plan that Mittens has for everyone. But as far as I know, it's just something that happened. The two things coincided with each other, and it might be helping us. It might be a case that P-Horde and other people aren't coming down because of that, but I don't think they're related.
No, yeah, I haven't been able to go to the summit this year, so I haven't been able to be filled in with Mittens' great grand plan by word of Arik. He hasn't taken me into the Victorian, smoke hound they have in CCP's offices, because obviously Soundwave is just there running the whole thing.
That's true. This is true.
Actually, Soundwave lives a few blocks away from me, actually. I don't know if you guys know that. He moved to Riot Games, and they have a Santa Monica office.
Shh, don't say that.
Okay. Yeah, so we're pretty much done with Providence. You guys, we're going to see how that goes. It looks like it's definitely going to be a fun place for a while. But up north, wow, that really took a lot of energy on the map. So there's a lot of stuff going on in the north and the south. But let's move on to a different topic that I wanted to cover, which was the shipyards are doing some funny things, right, Dirk?
Well, I don't know exactly what the shipyards are doing. However, I ran across something last night that actually kind of freaked me out at first. I didn't recognize what was going on.
We heard it live.
Yeah,
that was funny.
It would have been funny if it was actually recorded, because there was a heightened pitch to my voice at the time. I had docked up at this station and was loaded up with some liquid ozone and cynos and shit, and undocked, and I was kind of moving around the station to get a cyno position on it, and out comes this Occator. Okay, and it was red, an NPC Occator, and I'm sitting there saying to myself, well, that's weird. What the hell is that? But I remembered from the night before on Open Comms when we were talking about these new color codes that they're using out there, blue and red and white, right? And I'm sitting there saying, well, it's not from, okay, well, I'm not in anything that can shoot it. It's not in anything that can shoot me. It's all okay. And then I see a red NPC Iteron Mark V pull up to the station. And I said, okay, that's weird too. And next thing I know, there's a couple Vexers, and then I zoom out a little bit, and there's a whole goddamn fleet around me, and it starts red boxing me, and I just quickly dock up. And it turns out that apparently it is something related to these NPCs being a bit aggressive out there, that I think is either related to shipyards or well, this was in where was it? No, this was in
Iridia.
This was in Iridia, yeah. But yeah, so I don't know. At first, I'm like, "What the hell is going on here?" And then when I saw a whole bunch more, showed up, I quickly docked up and said, "What was that?" And you guys kind of explained it to me a little bit.
Yeah. So Carneros, what was going on? Or actually, any of you guys that know what's going on? The NPCs seem to be doing stuff on their own. Anybody know what that is?
Well, that's
Can't
just
say, huh? Jintan?
what are the NPCs doing? That's the same thing as the forward operating bases. This is CCP's PVE to try to remove all the extra structures that are sitting in space that no one's taking care of and no one cares about anymore.
Right. Okay. All right. So basically, these forward operating bases show up in various areas, right? And if you don't take care of them, if you don't get rid of them, right, then they can become aggressive and begin to kind of go out and actually look for stuff. Again, I was on an NPC station here, right? That they showed up, and I guess it was because I have poor standings to these people, and maybe they thought my Viator was somehow going to aggress their Occator and decided to come in and take care of me. But I guess they can also go out and potentially go after the various structures that are out there as well, or gate camp. Is that what you were telling me?
They can actually reinforce citadels as well. I don't know if you're aware of that.
Well, that's what I meant by attacking structures. Yeah.
I'll tell you a trick. Here's a useful trick you can use at home. Not a trick, a tip. If they attack your structure, what you don't want to do is form up a fleet to fight them. What you do want to do is form up a fleet to go remove their headquarters. Because if you just form a fleet to fight them on your structure, you'll be disappointed with what happens.
Well, Amar Citizen 25 says that if you show up on grid with a mining NPC fleet, they call in reinforcements whether you're attacking them or not. So I guess that's what's happening around. And Noisy Gamer tells us that the botters are complaining about these guys because they're interrupting their operations. So maybe it won't be players that organize posses to go kill botters. It may be NPCs that do it. Who knows? All right, but anyway, I thought that was interesting. Again, this is something that CCP's put a lot of effort into it, and that is increasing the abilities of the artificial intelligence of the game in order to create players, non-player characters, NPCs that react kind of like players. And that seems to populate the world when people aren't around.
Jen, are we getting? I mean, you're on the CSM, so I expect that you have some kind of deeper, understanding. Are we getting this wrong? That this is where they're originating from, and kind of why they're out there, acting aggressively in places that you wouldn't expect NPCs to show up at?
Even if I knew, would I even tell you?
Well, aren't we supposed to know what's going on out there?
I don't know. Are you?
Probably not.
Why do you have them? Why do you expect this? CCP wouldn't lie to you.
CCP is not interested in having the player base know all of the exact details for how shipyards and forward operating bases actually work right now.
It was only a couple of years ago that someone said that there are still triggers in wormholes that haven't been hit yet.
Oh wow!
There's a lot of value in preserving some mystery from the players across multiple games. I get that. I get why they want to do that. There's a version of this technology on Singularity, the test server, and it is not the exact same version of what's on Tranquility. And that's by design. They don't want us to be able to go over there and then just test everything and perfect a system and then bring it back to TQ and execute it flawlessly. That's not what they want. And it's not what we want if we think about it.
No, and I was not looking for insider information as to, can you tell me, how to deal with this, what is the optimal solution to it or anything like that, right? More along the lines of, I know that when this is not just something that they released with no word on whatsoever, right? I'm just wondering if you could have clarified some of the lower level stuff that they've put out, and whether it be dev blogs or some sort of, posts or anything like that.
In terms of devlogs and stuff that's publicly available, they're just new PvE. Go enjoy them.
So the judge is in the chat and he says that what you're asking isn't publicly available. It looks like.
Yeah, like.
So
I don't know.
All right, we won't push
And
you
the-
over that.
And one
NDA
comment to
line.
the EMR Citizen guy, he's talking about a moment that's in progress. It's changing over time. This is where we are now in our path to what this feature will be in another 6 or 9 or 12 months.
Yeah.
One thing I guess we should say is that in this release this past week, right, on Tuesday, I believe now forward operating bases are shown through the agency. You can see where they are. Again, I believe it's proximity based. So and also time based as to whether or not you can see them, and then how far away you are from them to where you can see them on the agency, depending on how long that they've been out there or something like that. But I think before you had to actually, find them based on, where their, haulers were going and things like that, right? But now I
Yeah.
think there's something about being able to see things through the agency.
Well, I think McLeod made a funny point that the botters are being displaced by the human botters are being displaced by actual robots, which was kind of a neat irony. So we'll see what happens there. All right, CSM's coming up. They're going to meet soon. What can you tell us about that? Are you excited?
I'm
on the
not
CSM?
going, sadly.
Oh, no.
I have exams on Monday and Thursday, and the summit runs Monday through Friday, so I'm not going to be heading there. In fact, I believe almost all of the CSMs should be here by now, although a couple of the Europeans got stuck because there's a huge fuck-off snowstorm in Iceland right now.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so I think Yukiko was delayed, so he's just been sitting in an airport for 8 hours.
Oh, that's why. Okay, that makes some sense. Some things were going on earlier.
That's awful.
Yeah. Travel's been pretty awful across the United States the last few weeks. Yeah, so the judge is in Iceland in a hotel right now, he says.
Yeah, I think Nominate and Aerith should be there now as well.
Sort
Yeah.
posted he was there now too, although his
Awesome.
luggage didn't quite make it.
Oh, that's
Got
right.
lost in
He's on
Vancouver.
CSM now. He got in because who dropped out? I forget.
Vince Draken got kicked
No, that's right.
for not participating.
Now, I think is it just you and Sutonia who aren't going to be actually present?
Yeah,
or was there anybody else?
It was the choice between me and Suit not going, or Nomina, Aerith, and someone else not going. So they chose.
And they didn't go with. Oh, okay, CCP. We see what you're trying to gin up there.
This is another reason I would never join CSM, is I would not want to travel for a small, focus group to get my stuff, to get people's stuff up on the table and stuff like that. I know Carneros
it's
can
a
be
lot
a
better.
crazy look, but you like it? You like being on CSM?
I wouldn't say I enjoy it, but it's definitely better than not traveling than doing it properly.
Some things are work, but rewarding at the same time.
Yeah. It's a lot of work, but it's good work. You feel like you're getting shit done at the summit.
Well, it's the travel that puts me off. But so, what do you think is coming out of this CSM? Are there things that they're going to deal with? You can't talk about the agenda.
Sadly, the fucking agenda is not public yet, so
that's
I
right.
can't actually discuss it. But I imagine we'll be talking about a lot of big things that have been on the agenda for a while. Probably be talking about, I imagine structures and solve and all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know there's been a lot of outcry about the current as planned iteration for Q1. I imagine there'll be a lot of discussion about that. What kind of fixes might make that palatable?
Are they going to fix their chat bubbles? Although I kind of like them.
I don't know.
Well,
And
they'll probably go off the feedback.
I
we
will say
actually
this.
had a hell of a problem with that one.
Well,
I
I was
kind of
saying-
dropped the ball on that one.
I was just going to say that they're better now than when I think they were originally released on Sissy, where they were static. Right now, it's like I think you have to is it hover over the name or click on the name or something like that, and then like the little bubble pops up.
Yeah, with the compact chat view, which is a compromise. Yeah, that one was a really weird change because it didn't come from Psycho Sisters like I assumed it had. It came from Team Genesis, which is the new players team.
Yeah, new players. That's what I figured it was for.
Yeah, that was the intent.
It's more intuitive. I think they wanted to make this game, at least it looked like, they wanted to make it more one-hand friendly. Don't ask me why, but they wanted to they put the contextual menu when you press on something too long, then you get the options that relate to that object. You have, less right clicky maybe. I don't know.
Well, that's definitely the intent, was to make this one drop down menu. Anyway, someone actually just asked in chat what the CSM perks are, so I thought I'd roll them out. It's just
You
get
need to
your
speak
account
up.
paid
You're
for.
roboting.
Sorry. Someone in chat asked what the perks of being on the CSM were, and it's literally just you get flown to Iceland and you get an account paid for. Oh, sorry, 5 accounts paid for now. They up that.
You get 5 accounts paid for.
Yeah, that's the standard for a CCP employee.
Used to be 4 back in the day.
Just saying. 5 accounts. Why? They assume you have multiple characters.
Well,
at
they
that
want
level.
you
all
to
of
start
all
all
of
over
us
again
have.
and play, and they want you to, try
Oh.
each of the factions, and they want you to,
To experiment with. You get 5 accounts. Okay.
Yeah. Whereas for the CSM, we just all have more than 5 accounts. Like, it doesn't even make a dent in Aerith's sub account.
Okay. All right. Figure out your roboting. We'll move on.
Well, I mean, obviously the agenda hasn't come out, but I mean, what do we expect is going to be on the agenda? I mean, where do we think the words are going to be spent? I mean, again, 2018 is another year of ongoing structured development. Now, there may be other stuff that's going on out there on the side, or hopefully being talked about 2019 if structures aren't done by then, for God's sakes. But that's still going to be kind of a big thing. I there are all kinds of people out there that are waiting to hear the words player built Stargates again. And the only time that we have ever heard the friggin' words player built Stargates from anybody was years ago, other than other players just bringing it up.
I will say that this in the next summer will probably be interestingly positioned for that, because we are coming to the end of Seagull's original roadmap.
Yeah, and it was also said pretty clearly that would be the last thing they would take on. So we know it's coming at the end. But are we at 5 years yet? Because that was the original plan, or are we past 5 years?
It was
No.
2014 it was presented.
Okay, so they still have time. They've just
It
changed.
wasn't presented as a 5-year plan, was it? It was presented
No.
as like 3 or 4 years.
It was
So
well,
we're coming up to
presented
maturity.
as the roadmap, but
Oh, I thought it was
Yeah.
a 5-year plan. Okay.
No, we're not Stalinist Russia, mate. We don't have 5-year plans.
2-year agricultural
Now, see-
5-year plan.
and this is kind of what I mean by the player built Stargate conversations that take place out there, right? You got Dunk who says the Stargates thing is just jump bridge replacement. That's what I believe too. However, the way they vaguely referred to it back in the day, right? Unknown parts of space. So people start getting in their head that it could go off to, Eve Fairyland or something out there. That these aren't just jump bridge replacements, that they are something else. And this is what I mean by, kind of the. It's been more widely talked about in speculative terms by players than any word that has ever been mentioned by CCP or anyone else since they kind of initially said something about it.
Right. All right. Well, we're pretty much out of time. That's getting close to 90 minutes here. One last thing, and this is not fair to you guys, but botting in general, you guys think it's okay, or do you guys think it's a plague on the game?
Fucking terrible, isn't it?
I think it's pretty bad. It drives up the prices for people who are trying to make ISK in the game. So yeah, I think
I have an agenda, so I shouldn't probably answer.
I mean, fundamentally, botting, and real money trading are fundamentally bad for the game, right? They're bad for any game out there on a number of levels, both inside the game as well as the resources that the developer has to spend in combating them, as well as criminal acts like account hacking, to get at that real money trading loot, right? For real money traders or things like that, or credit card fraud or whatever, right? I mean, there are a whole number of different factors. The problem is that, I think in a game like Eve, what it would take to actually stop it, okay, and forget the real money trading aspect of it, let's just stick with the botters for the moment. For them to actually stop it is an incredible amount of effort that I don't know that they really are scaled to deal with.
And the damage it does is more than most players even understand.
From a gaming studio perspective, What are we not understanding?
Well, one of the things that most players don't think about is how it can attract organized crime to come and participate in your game.
So that's a real thing.
Yes, it's terrible.
Yeah.
And that puts the lives of the developers at risk. I mean, literally, you get additional risks that way.
Can you comment at all about the Unholy Rage? And, was that because of that or something to do with that? Or would that be
No,
getting good?
Unholy Rage was more that. Okay, first I'll back up and say that was in, I'm going to guess, 2011 or 2012. I'm going to say 2011. And it was a particular moment in time when CCP implemented a new level of tech, caught a new group of botters and RMTers, and banned them in a wave. And then did a little bit of post-wave publicity to explain what they did. And this was, I think, partly driven by CCP Shrieks. And I don't know if he was the author of what they did that caught the new group of things, or if that just was, he was the person who was asked to go write the dev blog that went with it or what, but there was a band of stuff. And it did not have to do with any particular kind of risk or something. No, it didn't have to do with specifically with organized crime or some kind of threat to the devs.
Well, you're working with, in general, you're working with virtual currency for a game played all over the world, which means the value of things is different in every country. So it could mean more to people in one country and less to them in another. And you're talking about a way of laundering actual money. This is something that Noisy Gamer follows a lot in his blog, The Noisy Gamer.
If players can reliably get back to real money from the in-game currency, now in certain countries you have governments who want to then put you into a category as a bank and then regulate you in that way and tax you in that way and supervise you in that way, and it's not good. There's all kinds of bad things that happen. You got to get rid of this stuff.
Right. So what we're talking about, though, is real money transactions, people taking money out of the game. Botting adds to that because that's what allows the mega wealth to be generated, because instead of you doing it, you have a machine do it for you 24/7.
There's only a couple of ways to supply the commodity for selling in-game currency, and those ways include botting, paying a lot of low-wage labor to farm your wages, your in-game currency, or hacking and stealing it. And all of them have drawbacks.
Right. So you can actually open a sweatshop of EVE players and mine the heck out of a region, and
it works better in some MMORPGs than others, but it's not. But it works at least to some degree in any of them.
Wild. All right, big topic. We'll take it on someday. But we're out of time today. I want to thank everybody for showing up today. Jin and Sharp and Broham. Do you guys have anything you want to say, by the way, to your team?
Oh, we've kind of already circle jerked enough here, I think. It's a shame we didn't have someone from PL on to kind of actually debate the narrative a bit more.
Killer B had to leave us because he's preparing for, there's a big op going on. A lot of people are preparing for it. I believe it happens 1900. Look out for a big fight, and if people don't stand down. And so he had to take off, but he did represent PL to some degree because he was there when the decisions were made on the campaign itself. Although he's in NC now.
Yeah, I'm kind of sad I'm not participating in a lot of that setup. I'm unfortunately have my exams on Monday and Thursday, so I've been prepping for those.
You're busy with school, huh? All right. Well, that's okay because I heard Sharp is taking your place. So.
Yep, been doing the general, getting everyone ready.
Right. Well, thanks, Sharp. It's nice to meet you, and Brohamo, you too. Good luck to you guys in Providence. Right now, Carneros, can you give us the thank yous?
I'd be happy to. Thank you to Anominate for 30 months in a row. I've got you beat, bro. Thank you to Bromander. Thank you to Ingress. And thank you to the Inimical. It's great to have the support. Also, thank you to Merv the Perv. Nice to be honest about things like that.
Well, just to say
Yeah,
yes,
point.
thank you, Inimical. The 10,000 cheer is $100. So thank you very much.
Yeah, I wanted
Jeebus,
to-
you're kidding.
Yeah.
No, I
Look
kid
at that.
you not. He hit us on Open Comms the other night. I think he hit the Meta Show yesterday, and he hit Talking in Stations today. So
It's a
you know
round
what?
of generosity.
Props to that guy. He's also been giving some gift subscriptions out. I mean, he's just really been all over the place in the last.
In my mind, I'm picturing a nice bottle of wine. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, if we meet him at a player meet, we'll be nice. But Ecumenical, thank you very much. Very generous, and thanks for supporting the other shows as well. And thank you guys
Coming in
for
late,
showing
there's
up.
Cypher with 23 months in a row, and Chronos 7 just subscribed with Twitch Prime.
All right. Turn this into a telethon and just.
Thank you to Cypher. Woohoo. Hey, bro. I see
All
you.
right. Thanks, guys. Thank you for showing up. Again, Jintan, Sharp, Brohamo, Killabee, thank you
Chrono
guys
7.
for helping the show out. Carneros and Dirk, thank you guys for helping me out. And thank you for showing up and watching Talking in Stations. We will be back next week, but that's all there is for this week. We'll see you on Talking in Stations.